Welcome back. So today we're going to be revisiting the most terrifying prehistoric creatures ever, and yeah, that's pretty much all there is for this introduction. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. Giant Killer Dinosaur.
I'm going to be spoiling it all for you right now. It's the Maraxis Gigas.
The Maraxis Gigas was quite similar to the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Of course, the Maraxis Gigas is just compared to the T-Rex. The T-Rex has faced enough already. And of course, this is the 1910s T-Rex, who would have figured.
And that it was a huge meat-eating dinosaur with tiny arms.
Of course, the tiny arms mentioning. I'm just tired of it all already.
This terrifying new creature was discovered by paleontologists just recently.
So, this video was made in October the 20th, 2022. So, like, 1.5 months or so. 1.5 months or so before Skullcrawler.
In the northern Patagonian region of Argentina.
What the bloody hell was that?
And of course, slap in a T-Rex skull instead of whatever, a Carcharodontosaurid would be fine. Out of all the skulls you could have chosen the Carcharodontosaurus skull, Giganotosaurus skull, but instead you chose the T-Rex.
The skull of the new dinosaur was first unearthed in 2012.
Which, there's nothing wrong with that statement. Okay, this is correct.
And since then, many more of its bones have been excavated. It's an entirely new species.
Pronate risk T-Rex committing self-mutilation, even though it's supposed to be Maraxis Gigas. Honestly, just take it how you will.
A creature with laughable forelimbs that scientists say gave the apex predator a survival advantage.
Okay, now the thing about small arms that it helps in territorial disputes, in which the small arms were prevented from others of the same kind to bite them when it comes to territorial disputes.
While we may mock these kinds of dinosaurs for having stubby little arms,
and of course, creatures like the T-Rex didn't really need to use arms for hunting. Instead, they grew ridiculously powerful heads.
They weren't totally useless. This particular dinosaur weighed a whopping 4 tons.
Okay, this is fine. Larger ones could have reached over 5.5 tons.
But may have even grown larger. It was near the top of the food chain between 90 million and 100 million years ago in what is now Argentina.
This thing lived just 95 to 93.9 million years ago, as you can see here. So 90 to 100 million years ago, even though it's technically correct, it's just way too broad.
It was a type of Carcharodontosaurid.
Then why are you showing what seems to be a gigantic tyrannosaur? Especially when it comes to those trees, it's just completely stupid.
Meaning it belonged to a family of carnivorous theropods, dinosaurs that walked on 2 legs.
Just show the Mapusaurus from Planet Dinosaur at this point. It's also a Carcharodontosaurid, so whatever, just show it. Instead of the T-Rex. It still wouldn't be accurate, of course, but like, it's much better.
It was also at the peak of evolution of such dinosaurs. What I mean by peak evolution is that this was the best rendition of the theropod carnivore.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
As of recording this, I'm still kind of sick, and Origins Explained is threatening to just make my brain explode already.
It had reached such a high level of development that scientists believe it had facial ornamentation linked to social signaling.
Didn't the Ceratosaurus also likely have those colored ornaments? So there's really nothing new here.
In other words, it was starting to develop facial expressions and characteristics quite similar to our own. As for its short forelimbs, those were used for mating activities.
This is genuinely painful. Instead of ripping off a Carcharodontosaur arm, they just rip off a T-Rex arm and just go with nothing ever happened. Oh my god. I can't speak today. I'm sick.
Scientists aren't sure how, but they definitely had something to do with attracting partners. Number 9. Theosinosaurus.
Ah, bright side pronunciation vibes. Roll the clip.
Theosinosaurus.
By far, the most terrifying prehistoric beast might have been the Therizinosaurus.
Okay, now Katrina uses a more orthodox pronunciation instead of Therizinosaurus, which actually isn't that wrong either. I've gotten better as I'm recording this.
This creature stands out from all others because of its size and savage ferocity. It had claws on the ends of its fingers that made it the Edward Scissorhands of the prehistoric world.
That comparison is just... I don't even know what to say.
These things were so long that it could have cut a person into 3 pieces with one swipe.
This Therizinosaurus jumping is just completely and utterly stupid. By the way, Therizinosaurus is supposed to have a bit of feathers as well. This is a more accurate representation of the Therizinosaurus. As you can see here, it's supposed to have a lot more plumage.
It also only had 3 fingers, with its extraordinarily long claws extending from each one like nightmare manicured nails.
Ah, dinosaurs casually passing through without being intimidated in the slightest. Ah, totally realistic behavior.
So how long were these deadly finger swords? Scientists say the claws were at least 3 feet long each, maybe even longer. That's about the length of an ordinary person's leg. And these things were sharp and unstoppable.
Doesn't mean that the Therizinosaurus can just pounce on whatever looks to be an oversized Tarbosaurus or Jucheng Tyrannus and just slash away like ninjas. You can't convince me that this is not a ninja.
Plus, the Therizinosaurus stood an estimated 30 feet tall.
Do you mean 30 feet long? It's just 16 feet tall at the most. According to this logic, the Therizinosaurus would have been around 60 feet long, which is completely and utterly ridiculous.
Over 3 times taller than a human.
Depends on which human. If you're talking about Robert Wadlow, then okay. Then if you're talking about an average dude from like Bolivia or something, it's just gonna be ridiculous.
But even though this thing had samurai swords at the ends of its hands,
these are actually quite fragile, and even though they can be used to defend themselves, they are more useful when pulling vegetation within reach.
it wasn't a carnivore.
Who would have figured?
It was an herbivore, although scientists don't know for sure 100%. They believe it used its deadly weapons for reaching into the trees and pulling down vegetation.
Doesn't mean it can just jump like that. Seriously. When can this 5-ton animal stop jumping? It's just going to break its own skeleton.
Hold on.
It was almost like an overgrown sloth. So far, the only known location of the Therizinosaurus is Mongolia. It lived in the Gobi Desert about 70 million years ago.
Okay, nothing problematic with those statements as you can see here. This is fine, I suppose.
Number 8. Bufo.
Bufo. Okay. Or Bufo.
In modern times, the only frogs people need to be afraid of are the ones that excrete poison through their skin, like the tiny, colorful ones found in places like the Amazon jungle.
Okay, so at this point, if you just be careful, then you'd be fine. Even with those things, just don't touch them.
But between 65 and 70 million years ago,
Bufo lived just 70 million years ago, as you can see here.
on the island of Madagascar, there was a creature known as the devil frog that would have been positively horrifying. It lived during the late Cretaceous period and was most likely the largest frog that ever lived.
That town now actually belongs to an unnamed giant Eocene frog, coined as Megabatrachos chilensis, as you can see here. Here is this comparison, as you can see here. It's a great disparity.
According to National Geographic, the Bufo was the size of a beach ball, weighing about 10 pounds and growing to be 16 inches long.
Now it's actually closer to around 9 inches long, as you can see here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's outdated.
That doesn't seem like much, but this frog was roughly the size of a small dog. And here's another thing that makes the Bufo such a terrifying creature.
Ah, is it because it looks like the devil? The second coming of Satan himself? The second coming of...
Unlike its docile, living relatives, the devil frog was mean and aggressive. Scientists say it was an ambush predator that would have attacked anything that got too close.
Implying that it also attacked something as gigantic as the Majungasaurus. Oh, sorry, the Majungatholus, because that's what the gods in Jurassic Fight Club claim.
Hey dude, you missed a spot.
I got it. Just a little...
Majungatholus. Actually, dude, it's...
Majungasaurus.
That's what I said.
Majungatholus. Dude, that would be...
Majungasaurus.
It would have snatched lizards, small vertebrates, and even newly born dinosaurs. This frog had an incredibly powerful set of jaws, along with a massive mouth.
I like how this dinosaur is just running around and just flipping over. It's like it's 2D instead of...
It had all the tools it needed to crunch dinosaur bones and swallow small hatchlings. One thing that still baffles scientists is that the only living relatives of the Bufo are found far from Madagascar in South America. Scientists don't understand how the descendants of the greatest frog that ever lived migrated so far across seemingly open water.
Evolved by convergence, but personally I doubt the Bufo evolved into horned frogs because Africa and South America were already separated. Just even Madagascar, let alone Madagascar, man. This is a map from 85 million years ago. As you can see here, South America and Africa, as well as Madagascar and even India, they had separated.
They believe there must have been a land bridge between Africa and Antarctica about 65 million years ago.
Completely and utterly ridiculous. Bufo didn't even live until the KPG extinction event.
Number 7. The Super Piranha.
I'm gonna spoil it right now. It's the Mega Piranha.
The modern red-bellied piranha can grow to about 20 inches in length. That's just shy of 2 feet. But the Mega Piranha paranensis, which lived between 6 and 10 million years ago.
As far as I'm concerned, this, compared to this, is a questionable but acceptable estimate.
At the same time as the Megalodon.
Of course, referencing the Megalodon. The Megalodon has become the Superman of the aquatic world.
Grew to be even bigger. Researchers believe it was nearly 30 inches long and weighed roughly 30 pounds.
I guess this is fine for a larger individual. And just compare a regular human to Robert Wadlow.
It had incredible zigzag teeth that it used to slice flesh like a mouthful of razor blades.
They might have been a transitional form between feeding on hard prey and specializing in slicing fish, given that the Mega Piranha isn't really a piranha. Basically an intermediary between a pacu and a piranha.
It also had one of the most incredible bite forces of any fish throughout the planet's history. The bite force of a Tyrannosaurus rex was roughly 3,000 pounds.
Just casually slapping in a T-Rex into a Mega Piranha session. Who would have thought? Man, they're both completely different animals. Just compare Mega Piranha to Megalodon at this point. It's more closely related to Megalodon than, like, T-Rex.
Nobody knows for sure, but that's a solid estimate. The Mega Piranha had a bite force of 1,000 pounds.
Which, fine. Okay.
To put that into perspective, the Mega Piranha was about 100 times smaller than the T-Rex, yet it had an almost comparable bite force.
Wow. You call 1,000 pounds and 3,000 pounds comparable?
You serious?
The Mega Piranha's unforgiving chompers would have meant certain mutilation to anything unfortunate enough to get stuck between them.
Now, the thing is, piranhas are attracted to blood, If the Mega Piranha acts like a piranha, it's going to have to attack something that is leaking blood. If that thing is not leaking blood, it's not going to attack.
If that meant your arm, it was coming right off. Lucky for us, this creature went extinct a long time ago. It had made its home in the rivers and waterways of South America, where its modern relatives still live, terrorizing unsuspecting swimmers and biting their fingers off.
That's only if they see blood. If they don't, they're not going to bother you. If you got a cut and you're bleeding, yeah, they're going to attack you. But no cuts, no bleeding, nah.
Just kidding. Only sometimes. And now for number 6. If you are new here, welcome, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already.
Instead, you should consider subscribing to my channel because I actually try and offer valuable content to educate you guys. It's free and you can always change your mind. Back to video.
Number 6. Berionyx. The Berionyx was a truly frightening carnivore. It also had a similar body to the T-Rex.
What the fucking fuck? That is not okay!
T-Rex skull in a Berionyx segment. Genuinely, I'm at a loss for words. It is completely and utterly ridiculous.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
Meaning it was large and plodded around on 2 legs. But it was less of a lizard with long legs and more of a reptile mixed with a heron. The Berionyx was an expert fisherman that grew to be over 30 feet long.
But that is not a Berionyx that you're showing. You know, 9 meters is fine, but I genuinely concerned about this person just insistent on not showing the Berionyx when talking about the Berionyx.
It had extremely sharp and finely serrated teeth that were great for ripping apart the flesh of fish. It also had a spectacularly long neck and a mouth shaped just like a crocodile's mouth.
Ah, typical calling a Spinosaurid's skull similar to that of a crocodile.
Which made it perfect for snatching prey out of the water. Unlike other carnivorous theropods during the age of the dinosaurs, the Berionyx was a passive hunter. It didn't chase down food and terrorize other dinosaurs. It spent most of its time crouched at the edge of riverbanks or wading into the shallow water to catch fish.
I'm not gonna talk about how this model looks like it's from something like Rampage. I'm going to talk about its generally accurate depiction behavior. This is genuinely quite surprising to hear Origins Explain talking about accurate Berionyx behavior in a paleontology video that is just incredibly horrible at showing Berionyx.
But just because the Berionyx was a fisherman didn't mean it wasn't dangerous. This thing had claws that were like metal hooks. It could cut and disembowel, and its arms were actually long enough to do something with.
Once again, showing what looks to be a T-Rex skull. Typical. Just typical.
Unlike the T-Rex, it was also a scavenger.
Okay, to give Origins Explain some credit, at least they didn't outright just say the Berionyx is a scavenger without also saying that it's a hunter. Unlike Jack Horner.
I don't care if T-Rex was a predator. Show me some evidence. Show me some evidence.
And would have chased lesser animals away from their kills and stolen their food.
By the way, there's no way a ceratopsian would have galloped like that.
Number 5. Drennotus. The Drennotus is an extinct genus of sauropod.
Drennotus is only famous because of Jurassic World Dominion, I assume anyways.
A truly gargantuan herbivore that had a neck 37 feet long. Sauropods were the
Use Jurassic World Dominion Drennotus. At least that's a Drennotus, compared to whatever this is.
biggest land animals that ever lived, defined by their large size, their preposterously long necks, and their 4 thick legs. They had really tiny heads, and their legs were like concrete pillars to support their immense weight.
Makes sense because they have foot padding, which allows them to support their own weight, as you can see.
Then at their backs, they had extremely long tails like whips.
Okay, whereas if a diplodocid could break its own tail when whipping, the Drennotus may not. And especially not the Shinosaurus. Well, as long as the whips are slow enough.
Recently, researchers even discovered that sauropods had soft, padded feet to help them carry all that bulk. The Drennotus was not the biggest sauropod of them all, but it was a hefty monster.
Calling animals monsters and all that, once again, it's just not very good. It's just incredibly mainstream, and it just terrorizes kids.
It had a length of at least 85 feet and weighed 65 tons.
From what I remember, Drennotus is like just over 40 tons or something. I kind of forgot.
Only 2 fossils have been found, both in 2014 in southern Patagonia. The fossils date back 77 million years.
Okay, just a little bit off. The Drennotus lived around 76 to 70 million years ago.
The Drennotus was technically a kind of titanosaur.
Yet you're now just showing a brachiosaur instead of Drennotus, for whatever reason, even though they're both macronarians.
Closely related to the Argentinosaurus, the largest dinosaur that ever existed.
As of 2025, it's still the largest dinosaur existed, which is confirmed. However, there's that Berionyx, which may or may not have surpassed the Argentinosaurus in size.
And the Saltasaurus.
Saltasaurus was also a titanosaur, just a tiny one, so fair enough.
Scientists have speculated that because of their long necks, they wouldn't have needed to move very much.
It's more so because of their gigantic size granting them protection from predators. Not a lot of Drennotus survive till adulthood. They start off small and they just get eaten, most of them at least.
They would have walked no more than a few feet, then stood around all day munching on vegetation.
Which is quite an exaggeration. They, like basically every other vertebrate, need to rest. And if they don't rest, they can literally pass out and be vulnerable.
If anything unpleasant got near them, they would use their tail to slap it away.
I don't think that's necessary when you're carrying all that weight with you and you can just crush your opponent under your own weight. I don't think an 8.4 meter long Orcoraptor would want to hunt something as gigantic as a Drennotus. I know size is not determined by length, it's determined by mass, but you get the idea here. It would be kinda like a bunch of gray wolves taking on an elephant.
Number 4. The Jacalopterus.
This thing is severely overmentioned. Like, it's been in a whole lot of terrible paleontology videos that I reviewed, and, man, I just don't want to see this thing anymore. It's just becoming a meme at this point. Also, the Dunkleosteus, the Arthroplura, Titanoboa, Megalodon, they're just mentioned so many times, it's just completely insane.
The Jacalopterus was the largest known eurypterid that ever lived. Eurypterids were armed predators of the ocean that looked like sea scorpions.
But they are informally called sea scorpions, though. That is a little bit confusing, don't you think?
And they evolved about 467 million years ago.
Which is actually when they began to exist. Okay, good enough.
And continued to thrive until 248 million years ago.
Really? They just jinxed that. They went extinct 251.9 million years ago at the end of the Permian. Just read Wikipedia about Permian and Triassic periods when that occurred. The Great Dying Wikipedia is over here, as you can see.
That was an extremely long time before the first dinosaur hatched, or before the first dinosaur laid an egg.
Dinosaurs began to exist just under 19 million years after the Great Dying had occurred, with some sources even suggesting under 9 million. So this statement isn't exactly true in the grand scheme of things.
Whichever came first. Eurypterids are particularly fascinating because they were bigger than anything you could imagine.
Wow. Including the Argentinosaurus and several other sauropods, huh? Oh, and also don't forget the blue whale, the largest animal to have ever existed. By saying these words in the first place, you have made sauropods and blue whales cry in the corner.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Picture a scorpion, only much larger, and swimming through the water to get you. That's how terrifying these things were.
Since they're predators, they likely would not attack a human until they get hungry or something. That's when they hunt.
They lived at a time when the oceans were brimming with life.
And they are still brimming with life as of now, just with completely different animals.
With their impenetrable armor, their snapping claws, and their many legs, they were able to effectively prey on just about anything.
Anything that can be hunted by this creature? Yes. But something remotely as large as a megalodon or a blue whale? No.
Some Eurypterids were quite small, no larger than the size of a child. But the Jacalopterus was gigantic, with an unbelievable length of roughly 10 feet.
It only applies to the Rhinanae species, reaching up to 8.5 feet in length. The Jacalopterus howelli just reached 2.6 feet in length, which is way shorter.
It grew to shocking proportions, which may have been unmatched by any other arthropod to this day.
Unless, of course, we're talking about ore-spawn mobs.
These were animals like beetles and spiders, as Eurypterids were some of the first arthropods to evolve. The Jacalopterus didn't live in the ocean, but lurked in fresh water like lakes and rivers.
Okay, fair enough, I suppose. As you can see here, you can see that this creature did potentially live in fresh water, to brackish water.
Hunting fish, and maybe even its own kind.
As if cannibalism doesn't already exist in the animal kingdom already. Even in the present day, lions can eat other lions, but even though it's uncommon, lions can eat other lions. That's the thing.
Number 3. The Giant Stork.
Okay, so I'm going to spoiler it. It's the Leptotylus robustus. I'm guessing Oranges Explained did not reveal its name at the very start in order to keep viewers engaged, keep viewers excited on what this creature is going to be.
In prehistoric Indonesia, about 50,000 years ago, there was a giant carnivorous stork. This was not like the stork you heard of as a child, the happy bird that brings babies to people through their windows.
Which is one of those child myths, child stories that are completely and utterly ridiculous when it comes to accurate science in general.
This was a stork that would have preyed on human babies.
Except, 1, adults and juveniles may have also been preyed on. And 2, these aren't exactly humans. They are another species of hominid called Homo floresiensis. They are an extinct species of small archaic humans. Not exactly Homo sapiens, per se, but you get what I mean.
While ancient hominins competed for food on the tropical island in Indonesia, they had to deal with the gigantic birds not only stealing their food, but also trying to eat them.
I'm going to assume this is the reason why it's justified on the list. Okay, then. Fair, I suppose.
The bird is called Leptoptylos robustus, and it was at least 6 feet tall.
Which is fine, I'll take that. Funny how they use the correct estimate for Leptoptylos robustus, but then they use the length to measure the height of the Theosinosaurus.
If you've ever been down to the river and seen a heron standing in the water waiting for a fish to go by, the prehistoric stork was about 6 times larger than that. It lived in Indonesia during a particularly unique period. There were gigantic birds, huge elephant-like creatures called stegodon.
Okay, at least Origins Explained called the stegodon an elephant-like creature, instead of just outright calling it an elephant, because the stegodon is not an elephant.
And hobbits. Yes, hobbits. There was an ancient race of human ancestors called Homo floresiensis.
Except it did not really evolve into Homo sapiens. And of course, there is no evidence of Homo floresiensis DNA on pygmy modern humans today.
Who stood only about 3 feet tall. They were tiny.
Now, the problem with this animation is that those straw huts should not exist. Let me tell you why. It's because the first agricultural revolution did not occur until around 10,000 BC, around 11,700 years ago, so just under 10,000 BC. Homo floresiensis did not survive long enough to witness the agricultural revolution taking place. A more accurate representation would be Homo floresiensis in a cave instead. A large natural cave.
And scientists say resembled the hobbits from the Lord of the Rings more than ordinary people today. Because of their small stature, you can see why the ancient hominins had such a difficult time competing with 6-foot birds.
I would argue, as far as even the regular Homo sapiens from like 10,000 years ago would have a tough time facing something as gigantic as that giant stork that I forgot the name of. Leptotylus robustus, yes.
One of the scientists who studied the new stork fossils, Dr. Hanneke Meyer, said that because the gigantic stork could fly, it would have been a direct competitor with early hominins. Number 2. The Mosasaur.
What Mosasaur? Are you talking about the Mosasaurus? Are you talking about the Tylosaurus? Are you talking about the Prognathodon or something else? Spoiler alert, this is an unnamed Mosasaur. As you can see here,
the Mosasaur lived 80 million years ago and was one of the most ferocious beasts that ever roamed the world's oceans.
Not the Megalodon crying in the corner now.
I've come to talk with you again.
To be fair though, Origins Explained does call a lot of these animals ferocious, mean, whatever. It's just an overgeneralization of predators' behavior.
In 2022, the skeleton of a mosasaur was found 80 miles from Dallas. Dr. Ron Tchaikovsky from the Perot Museum of Nature and Science helped direct the dig to retrieve this animal's bones. A 30-foot sea monster that was kind of like a mix between a crocodile and the Loch Ness Monster.
Man, these comparisons just oversimplify things a lot. A whole lot. I can't wait until this video is over once again. How many minutes have we got? 3, right? 3 minutes into the video. 3 minutes until the video ends, sorry.
It was an extremely massive marine reptile that grew to be the top predator in the ocean following the extinction of the ichthyosaurs and the pliosaurs.
Have you forgotten about the elasmosaurs? Especially the Elasmosaurus, as you can see.
Then, when the asteroid struck our planet 66 million years ago, the mosasaur went extinct with the rest of the dinosaurs.
Except that dinosaurs actually did not go extinct. Birds were still alive, even though they were still heavily impacted by the asteroid.
Animals like sharks and crocodiles survived, but the mosasaur didn't make the cut. One of the interesting things about the mosasaur is just how diverse its family was. The smallest of them all was the Allosaurus turneri, which grew to be less than 3.5 feet long.
Didn't you just label 3 feet long as 1 meter as well? Where's the consistency? It's just labeled as 3.3 feet.
While the biggest of them all, the Mosasaurus hoffmanni, could grow to be over 56 feet long.
Which is outdated. The largest mosasaur currently right now is the Tylosaurus.
As of right now, the largest Mosasaurus skeleton on display can be found at the Canadian Fossil Discovery Centre in Manitoba. The specimen's name is Bruce, and it's 43 feet long.
Didn't you say that the largest Mosasaurus was 17 meters? Man, the contradictions are just unreal.
The Mosasaur was a weird mix between a whale and a lizard.
You said that it looked like a mix between a crocodile and a Loch Ness Monster earlier on. I guess this is a better description. At least it doesn't use fictional animals.
That's honestly the best way to describe it. The creature had a body shaped kind of like a monitor lizard, except streamlined for swimming. They also had paddles which evolved by spreading web-like flesh between their long finger and toe bones. It's a perfect example of how lizards slowly evolved into the most terrifying predators of the ocean.
Doesn't mean that a Komodo dragon evolved from the Mosasaurus, or evolved to the Mosasaurus, for that matter. Where's the Mosasaurus, Katrina? Where's the Mosasaurus?
Number 1. Allosaurus.
Oh, is it because the Allosaurus did unspeakable acts in Jurassic Fight Club?
The Allosaurus was almost like the baby brother of the T-Rex.
I have no words. Nothing.
It was one of the first dinosaurs ever discovered.
Technically, that is quite close. But however, if you take a look at the Iguanodon, you'll notice that the Iguanodon was discovered way earlier.
Its fossils have been dug up from all over the world.
I thought it was only known in both North America and Europe.
And it was just as prevalent on land as the Megalodon was at sea.
Words can't describe how ridiculous this statement is.
It was a gigantic bipedal carnivore with small arms.
Relatively speaking, though, the Allosaurus' arms were actually quite large, or quite long. So, once again, you're contradicting yourself with circling the Allosaurus' relatively large arms and calling them small.
A big head and deadly teeth. The Allosaurus lived from sometime around 155 million years ago until 150 million years ago.
This thing actually lived all the way until the end of the Jurassic.
It was a Jurassic dinosaur and was particularly numerous in what is now Utah.
Makes sense considering that the Morrison Formation over here encompasses a bunch of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona.
At the Cleveland Lloyd Quarry, which boasts the densest concentration of Jurassic bones on the planet, 46 out of 74 of the dinosaurs identified were allosaurs. This shows just how prolific they really were.
I don't know what sort of game this Allosaur was ripped out of, but I can tell you that this Allosaurus is way too awesome, bro, to actually be an accurate Allosaurus.
Plus, they have been found all over the place, from Portugal to Siberia and even in Tanzania in Africa.
That thing found in Tanzania is an indeterminate. And of course, the thing in Siberia. Man, it's still not official, by the way.
There were many different species of Allosaurus, at least 8. Scientists say the largest of these species could almost rival the T-Rex.
What the bloody hell was that?
A 1976 analysis of one of their skeletons in the Utah Geological Survey Bulletin estimated the biggest Allosaurus could grow to an estimated 43 feet long and 16 feet tall.
If we measure this thing by length, then using the square cube law, we can determine that this creature, this hypothetical 13-meter long Allosaurus, could have weighed in at around 4 tons. No, I'm not.
Another interesting fact is that the Allosaurus had a pretty long lifespan. Adults could probably live up to at least 28 years. While that wasn't the oldest an animal could be at the time, it was still a pretty long life for a gigantic lizard. Thanks for watching.
What ate the dinosaurs? Other dinosaurs, obviously.
Which of these prehistoric beasts would be the most terrifying to see in real life? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon. Bye.
Terrible video once again. It showed the failed Indominus Rex concept as well. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.